Hello all. Let's wait for 5 minutes more so that more participants will join our presentation today. Hello all. I hope everyone had a great day so far. Myself, Sumit Bharne. I'm working as a senior Azure engineer at AFour Technologies. So let's start with the presentation for today. So why should you attend this webinar? Who can be a part of this community? What can you expect from this webinars? If you haven't gone through this PPT, you can simply have a look on AFour LinkedIn profile. So today we're going to discuss about DevOps Continuous Deployment, which include SysOps and CloudOps. So here's the today's agenda for our presentation. So initially we're going to look for what is cloud and its benefits and advantages. Second, we are going to look for cloud computing patterns. And third, we're going to look for cloud services model, that is IaaS, SaaS and PaaS. Fourth, we're going to look for what is Azure Platform. Fifth, we're going to look for Azure Services, followed by a short demo of Azure Portal and a basic PowerShell commands with demo. So here is the first question which comes into our mind, that what is cloud? As you might have heard here, there are three different cloud providers, specifically major three, that is AWS, that is Amazon Web Services, second is Microsoft Azure, and third is Google Cloud Platform. So today we're going to deep dive into Microsoft Azure. So here the question comes, what is cloud computing? So cloud computing is nothing but storing data and application on remote servers, processing data, application from the servers, accessing data, application over the internet. So in layman terms, if you want to know what exactly is cloud computing, so you can simply say that it's just a host which serves all of your IT infrastructure services, and you can access it over the internet or web. As we discussed, cloud computing is nothing but it is the use of remote servers on the internet to store, manage and process data rather than a local server or your personal computer. So let's quickly look into our cloud computing patterns. So there are specifically 4 cloud computing patterns. Let's discuss one by one. So cloud is nothing but, let's check for on and off. Let's say you have deployed an application on in cloud in your organization. So you will be charged only for what exactly you're using. For inactivity period, you won't be charged. So this is the beauty of cloud, wherein you will be only charged for the application or the resources which we are using. Apart from it, you won't be charged. Second, let's say you have an application and that application is growing tremendously. So if in case that application is growing tremendously, but obviously you'll have to scale up your environment. If you scale up your environment, but obviously your cost gonna vary. So whatever the cost that cloud gonna charge you depends on the resources which you have used. If you're not using a single resource, you won't be charged. Just like unpredictable bursting, you will be charged only for the spike which you are getting. If in case you don't get any spike, you won't be charged. So this is the beauty of cloud. Let's switch to service models. As I said to you that if you go for any of the cloud platforms, let's say AWS, GCP and Amazon, all the cloud platforms offers you 3 different service models. That is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service and software as a service. So let's quickly look into each and every service model. So in IaaS, the share of responsibility differs from the owner who owns that services and the cloud vendor who where that service has been hosted on. Here the services, majorly is concerned with the owner who have hosted that service. Let's take an example. I have a virtual machine and I'm creating that virtual machine on my Azure Cloud Portal. So there you'll have to select which application you want to run on that particular machine, which operating system you have to take, you have to launch that virtual machine on. That is taken care by the administrator. Rest, all the server related part, storage related part, or the networking or the backup related part taken care by the vendor, that is cloud vendor. Same if it goes for PaaS, that is platform as a service. So the share of responsibility with the owner side reduces and the share of responsibility with the vendor side increases. Let's take an example. If I have a code and I want to deploy it on Azure Cloud Portal, so I just have to give that code, and I don't have to worry about the infrastructure, what exactly infrastructure will be implemented, what OS, what virtualization technique I have to use, what will be my storage, or what will be the network connectivities. That will be taken care by vendor itself. Similarly, if you go for a SaaS, that is software as a service, you just have to give a data and all the things will be taken care by vendor. You just have to access that data over a thin client or an internet or a web. Just like we use Yahoo, Google and Microsoft Office 365. You just have to log into the portal and access that data. That's it. So again, let's take a brief look on what exactly IaaS, PaaS and SaaS meant for. So IaaS, that is infrastructure as a service, as the name suggests, provides you the computing infrastructure, physical or virtual machines and other resources like virtual machine disk, image library, block and file-based storage, firewalls, load balancers, IP addresses, etc. So a good example of IaaS, you can look for Amazon EC2 or Windows Azure, Rackspace or Google Compute Engine. Let's go for platform as a service. As the name suggests, provides you computing platform which typically includes operating systems, program language execution environment, database, web server, etc. The example in PaaS you can give is like AWS Elastic Beanstalk, Windows Azure, Force.com, Google App Engine, Apache Stratos, etc. While in software as a service model, you are provided with access to application software, often referred to as on-demand software. Just like I said, you don't have to worry about installation setup and running of the application. Service provider will do that for you. You just have to pay and use it through some thin client, for example, Google, Yahoo, and Microsoft Office 365. So again, this is a good example for service model. In IaaS, it will offer you firewall, VM, bandwidth, RAM, CPU, and network. In PaaS, it will give you OS, a framework design, database, or a web server. And in SaaS, it will give you the Yahoo, Gmail, Office 365, and etc. Now, as we discussed free cloud platform, which is increasing tremendously over the globe. Out of which we're going to discuss Azure today. So, what is Azure? So, Azure is Microsoft's cloud infrastructure and platform designed to build, deploy, and manage different applications and services through a giant network of data centers managed by Microsoft. It was launched in February 1st, 2010 as Windows Azure, which was later renamed to Microsoft Azure on 25th March 2014. Apart from providing services like SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS, it supports many other programming languages, frameworks, and tools which could include third-party systems as well. Almost 300 Fortune 500 companies uses Azure. Azure is growing tremendously at fastest pace. Azure also offers more than 100 plus services. So let's quickly go through the Azure features. So Azure provided a lot of features, out of which I have listed, 6 features here. So let's discuss one by one. So the very first feature is on-demand provisioning. So in on-demand provisioning, you can, scale up your environment as per your need, and you can, scale down your environment again as per your need. So you just have to pay for what exactly you're using, and you don't have to pay for what you're not using. So it gives you the feature wherein if you want to spin up multiple virtual machines at the same time, yes, you can do it. If you want to stop that virtual machine, yes, you can do it anytime. The second most important feature is scalability in minutes. As we discussed that we can scale our application or any resources as per our needs. If in case we want to scale up our environment, we can increase it. If you want to scale down, yes, you can do scale down as well. As Azure is a pay-as-you-go model, we discussed whatever the resource you use, you will be charged only for the running resources. If your resources is stopped, you won't be charged. So Azure charge you on a minute basis. And many features like, you can track a log. You can track a log, the usage or the services which you have used. You can measure it. You can capture the log like how many users logged into the virtual machines, when the virtual machine was stopped, when the virtual machine was started. You can capture whatever the logs you require to analyze it, and accordingly you can check what exactly the resources you want, and apart from that you can delete unnecessary resources just to save your money. So here's an image for Azure Platform, out of which few services are listed, out of which one is Live Services. Azure also provides you .NET services, SQL services for a database, Microsoft SharePoint services to store your data and share, or you can host a website as well on a SharePoint, and Microsoft Dynamics CRM services. So here we're going to look few services listed by Azure. So very first services is compute. So most predominant and most widely compute which is used, the best example we can give is VM, that is virtual machine. Or else the second example which we can give is disk. So whenever we create any project or any instance in Azure, but obviously we're going to create virtual machine where that application will be hosted. So the best example for compute is virtual machine. The second example is migration. The best services provided Azure so far is migration. Now you might have heard that most of the companies are getting migrated or moved to cloud, though it may be Azure, AWS or GCP. So Azure Services provide an inbuilt migration tool which will help you out to migrate your on-premises to cloud. So out of which one tool is Azure Site Recovery. It will help you to migrate your on-premises to the cloud. What happens? Few of the companies, they want all the services to be on premises, but they want only their database to get migrated over the cloud. So yes, Azure does provide you the tool wherein you can only migrate your database from on-premises to cloud, that is Azure Database Migrator. So in this way, Azure provides multiple tools to migrate from your on-premises to cloud. The third feature we'll talk about is the best feature which provided by Azure, that is security and compliance. If you compare this feature amongst all the 3 cloud platforms, Azure will give you the best feature for security and compliance. Azure Security Center has Azure Security Tool wherein it will give you all the information. It will help you to create inbound, outbound security rule to prevent your infrastructure getting attacked from brute force or the malicious malware attack. Azure Security Center will also help you providing a notification or a kind of alert to the administrator It will also give you the recommendation to prevent from malware attack, and it will also help you to give a forecast. Let's say that your infrastructure have recently, faced brute force attack. So after preventive measures being done, then it will give you the forecast that after 15 or 20 days, that attack may happen once again. So it gets notified to the administrator, so that administrator can take a strict action against it. So this is what about security and compliance. The fourth service is the major service which provide, that is the storage one. So Azure Storage, it has 4 types of storage. One is blob, second one is files, third one is queue, and fourth one is table. So let's understand one by one what exactly this 4 storage meant for. Blob, a massively scalable object stored for text and binary data. File storage, it manages file shares for cloud or on-premises deployment, just like we share files, from one portal to another or from cloud to on-premises. So that is being achieved by file storage. Third is queue, a messaging storage for reliable messaging between application component. And fourth one is table, a SQL store for schemaless storage for structured data. So these were 4 types of storage which Azure Services does provide to us, and the costing of this storage varies. So it's up to you which one you want to select. You can select it accordingly. The 5th most service provided by Azure is database. So most frequently database used globally is SQL database. So you can store your data and you can use a database as a SQL. Apart from SQL, Microsoft Azure does provide Cassandra or Maria, but you'll have to purchase it from the marketplace. So we're going to discuss this in our upcoming slides, from where exactly of these services or from where you can purchase it from the marketplaces. So very important service which we are going to discuss now, it's messaging. So let's take an example that we have, so let's say take an example like Pawan is the owner of e-commerce company, and most of the users, they are trying to access the website and they have more feedbacks or queries. So when customer feels the feedback or feels the query regarding the website, that feedback or the query should trigger an SMS to Pawan, so that he will get intimated that, that customer has a feedback or a query. So that feature can be achievable by this messaging. Now let's go to the networking. So again, this is the most important feature and the services you can say which is provided by Microsoft Azure. So let's say we have an on-premises. Now most of them are getting migrated over the cloud. So in order to have a connectivity between on-premises and Azure cloud, there should be some connectivity so that data can be migrated from on-premises to cloud or vice versa. So in order to have a connectivity, there are 3 types of networking which Azure Services do provide us. The first one is point to site, second one is site to site, and third one is express route. So let's discuss these 3 types one by one. So let's say we have an on-premises environment where we have 10 virtual machines. This organization is located in India, let's say at Mumbai data center region. And I have one more organization which is located in East US. So if one virtual machine is able to connect to the East US, then that is meant to be point to site connectivity. If all the 10 virtual machines are able to connect from India to US, that is site to site. And out of this, the express route is the most important feature which Azure Services do provide. If you want a specific dedicated lease line to communicate your 2 different sites, express route, you can use it. So there are 15 to 16 ISP providers for express route, out of which in India there are Tata Telecom and Airtel, and AT&T and T-Mobile is for globally used for. So the eighth feature we'll talk about is management tool. So I'll just give 2 or 3 examples so that for the better understanding of management tool, how exactly it works. So let's take a first example. So we'll have the same example that Pawan is an engineer in an e-commerce company. So he has a requirement like whenever his manager sends an email to Pawan, that email should trigger as an SMS to Pawan's mobile. So it can be achievable by logic apps. So you'll have to write a logic wherein whenever manager sends an email to Pawan, that email should trigger an SMS to Pawan's phone. So logic apps is a tool which Azure provides to achieve this. Just like this, there is Azure Log Analytics. This is again a tool where you can simply fetch all the logs of an instance running in your Azure, and you can capture the logs in one common location. The third and most important tool which management tools provide is Active Directory. Now, what exactly is Active Directory? Active Directory is a centralized server wherein you can manage all the services, resources running in your Azure by sitting at one place. You can create multiple users and you can give RBAC policies to them at a granular level, and you can monitor all the services sitting at one place. So these are few tools which I have explained, and many more tools will simply go through the portal once we run through Azure portal. So let's have a tour for Azure portal. I hope everyone have logged in to their Azure portal. If not, I request you to please opt for Azure portal. You can go for a free trial wherein you just have to enroll from your credit card. You'll get a $200 on a yearly basis. You can simply create spin up virtual machines, and you can simply test it over that environment. So let's quickly log into the Azure portal. So once you open a browser, you just have to simply type portal.azure.com. So it will ask you to enter your username and password. So my password is same. I'm just simply clicking on sign in. So this is an Azure portal. So as we discussed, Azure provides you 100+ services. So if you simply click on all services on the left-hand side pane, it will list you all the services. So Azure is a very user-friendly portal. So for example, let's say if you want to search for any network device or a storage device or a container or a database, so you don't have to search it one by one. Azure already filtered it based on these components. So if you select the storage, it will give you all the storage listed in Azure. If you click on networking, it will give you all the components related to the networking. So in this way, Azure offers you 100+ services so that you can select it from here. And if in case you want to opt it the third-party services which is not provided by Azure, yes, you can easily achieve that because Microsoft Azure provides you the option called Marketplace, wherein you can opt third-party vendor services, but let me tell you that you'll have to pay for those services. So the pricing may vary, depends on the vendors, but yes, you can search for whatever you want it over here and you can opt it from a marketplace. So before we proceed, I just want to tell you that I'm going to explain all the services listed over here, and later on we're going to have a short demo for the same via PowerShell. So this is a tab wherein all the resources you have created will be listed over here. For example, let's say you have created storage account or a resource group or a virtual machine or a virtual network, all will be listed over here. If you want to filter all the resources by resource group, yes, you can do that as well. Once you click on resource group, it will give you all the resource group, and if you click any of the resources, let's say FinOps, so whatever the resources or the services you have created, all will be listed over here. Apart from this, as we discussed, this is the database. Again, it's a service provided by Azure. You can create multiple SQL databases over here. And the most important, which we talked about, that is Azure Active Directory. So this is this comes under management tool, wherein we just discussed that you can create multiple users over here. You can give airbag policies. You can do whatever you want it over here. You can simply sync this users with your on-premises as well. And the major point we're going to discuss today is here about cost management and billing. So whenever you opt for any of the cloud platform, a major concern is about cost. So it will give you the dashboard over here. So it will show you what was the last billed amount, what is the current recent charges. It will give you all about the services as well. So it will give you each and every in a granular level. For example, let's say it will give me application gateway and it will give the cost accordingly. So it will give for virtual machine, it will give the cost accordingly. So that you can easily identify and analyze where your cost is getting, where your cost, maximum getting for. If in case you check and you analyze that you are paying for what you are not using, you can simply shut it off or you can delete it. In this way, you can save your money. Under invoices, okay, so under invoices, you'll get all the PDF file. You can simply download it from here, and you can compare the data, what exactly what exactly the charge it was cost you prior, and hence you can apply it accordingly. So here you can download all the invoices. So this was all about the GUI Azure portal. Now what we'll do is whatever we have checked, though it may be a virtual machine or it may be a storage account, we'll try to create it from a PowerShell. So let's switch back to a PPT. So let's get started with Azure PowerShell. So in order to access all your Azure data and services, so from normal PowerShell you won't be able to fetch it. For that, you'll have to import a module or download Azure PowerShell. So let's get started with Azure PowerShell. So Azure PowerShell started in December 2018. The module AZ. It is in general release and is now the intended PowerShell module for interacting with Azure. Azure PowerShell is a set of modules that provide commandlet to manage Azure. You can use the commandlet to create, manage, and remove Azure services. In most cases, you can use the commandlet for the same task that you perform in the Azure portal. The commandlet can help you to achieve consistent, repeatable, and hands-off deployment. Azure PowerShell is written in .NET Standard and works with PowerShell 5.1 on Windows and PowerShell 6.0 on higher platform of Windows, just like Server 2012, R2, 16, or 2019. So if you think you will do a task twice, automate it. For an example, let's say that let's say that you are the administrator of your organization. So one of your senior colleagues give you a task saying that you have to create one single user and you want to spin up one virtual machine in Azure. So it is very easy to create a single user or to spin up a single virtual machine in Azure. Now, what if your senior person tells you to create 1,000 users and spin up 50 virtual machines at the same time? So it's very difficult for an administrator to, create users or spin up virtual machines at the same time. So just to avoid those circumstances, what you can do is you can create a script and you can use Azure PowerShell to automate it. So we'll learn today how to connect to Azure Cloud via PowerShell. So as we discussed, Azure PowerShell works with PowerShell 5.1 or higher on Windows or later on all the platforms. So first of all, we'll go through the PPT and later on we'll execute this command on a PowerShell practically. So to check your PowerShell version, this is a command that is $ps version table.ps version. In order to connect PowerShell to Microsoft Azure, these three commands are very important. Initially, you'll have to install the module called Azure RM. Then you have to import that module. And once the module is imported, you'll have to connect that module to PowerShell so that your PowerShell in a backend will connect to your Azure subscription. I hope everyone is on the same page. If you have any questions related to this, you can simply ping on a chat or a Q&A box. We'll be more happy to answer your questions. So these are a few PowerShell basic commands today we're gonna learn is. So I have this created a script wherein we can gather all the information, whatever the instances or the services running up in Azure. Later on, we're going to create those services again. So in order to get a list of resource group, so there's a command called get-azure rm resource group. Just like if you want to get a list of storage account, so this get-azure rm will be constant for every command, and you just have to write a service name for which information you want to fetch it for. So for virtual network, the entire command remains same, get-azure rm, and just have to replace storage account by virtual network. Just like for virtual machine, you have to replace virtual network by VM. Once you fetch all this information, we're going to create the same resource group, storage account, virtual network, and virtual machine same via PowerShell. So this is the command. You can simply go through the PPT later because we're going to use this command in a PowerShell script. So this is the PowerShell commands specifically for the virtual machines. If you want to check the status of all the virtual machines, whether it's up or running, whether it's stopped or whether it's deallocated. So this is a command called get-azure rm VM --status. If you want to check the specific VM status, just have to add a name parameter, your virtual machine name, and where exactly that virtual machine resided. That is your resource group name. So the command will be get-your module, whatever the resource you want to fetch or to check the status, that is VM, hyphen, a parameter name, your VM name, hyphen, resource group name, where exactly that VM is resided, your resource group name will be present there. And in order to start and stop your VMs for automation purpose, these are the commands. Start hyphen your module name, VM, name, resource group name, That's it. And to stop it, just have to replace start by stop. Entire command remains same. So don't worry, we're going to execute this command practically over the server. So we'll check it there only. So let's simply go to the server and let's execute this command. So I'll request you to open a start, search for PowerShell. So search for PowerShell. So currently I'm using Windows PowerShell ISE. Right click on it and run as an administrator. So I'm simply opening the scripts. So as we discussed in PPT, let's execute those commands one by one. So in order to check the PowerShell version, this is a command. So my PowerShell version is 5.1. As we discussed, in order to connect to your Azure, your PowerShell version should be 5.1. Let's install the module called Azure RM. So you can say yes to all. Once the module is installed, let's import it. So it's executing the command at the backend. So this is a page wherein it will ask you to enter your administrator email address and password. So it will ask you to enter a password. So once you enter your password, so see we are connected to your via our Azure portal. So it will give you the information of your account. It will give you a subscription name, that is pay as you go, and it will give you a subscription ID. Now, as we discussed, initially we'll try to fetch all the services. Later on, we'll try to create it, and we'll check the few commands with respect to virtual machines. So this is a command in order to get a list of all the resource group present in our subscription. So this is here you will get an output. We'll have all the resource group present. So let's read one resource group only. So let's read this one. It will give you the information called resource group name, where this resource group is present. For example, it will give you location. It will give you the provision state, whether it's succeeded or failed, and it will give you the resource ID as well. In the same way, you can write a command to get a list of all the storage accounts. So here it will give me all the list of storage accounts present in my subscription. Again, it will give you the storage account name, where exactly the storage account is present, that is resource group name, location of that storage account, the size of that storage account, and the provisioning state of that particular storage account, whether it's succeeded or not. Just like similarly, we can give this same command to get a virtual network. So it will list out all the virtual network which you have created. So currently it seems that there are 3 virtual network which is created under different resource group, which will also give you the information called location and again provisioning state. So this was the command to get a list of all the services. So let's hit this command to get a list of virtual machines. So this command will help me to fetch all the running instances, though it may be a start or stop or deallocated state. It will fetch all the running VMs in my subscription. So in my subscription, I have only one VM running, so it will give me only one VM over here. Now we'll just try to create the same services which we fetched right now. So we will create resource group, virtual network, storage account, and virtual machine. So to create a resource group, so this is a command new hyphen, same your modules and the service name, that is new hyphen Azure RM resource group. What name you want to give for that resource group? So here I have given Azure Webinar RG, and at what location you want to create that resource group. So I've created in East US. So here I have executed the script. So see, so it has created with the name called Azure Webinar RG. So once we create all the services, we'll quickly check into Azure portal also and we'll confirm that whether these services are created or not. So again, to create a storage account, again the command will be same, just have to change the service name. Under which resource group you want to create that storage account. So whatever the resource group you have created above, I've just given the same name called Azure Webinar RG. What will be your storage account name? So I've given 123 test storage account and the location again and the size for the same. So make sure whenever you create a storage account, the storage account name should be in a lowercase and the combination of numbers. If you will give the uppercase alphabet, it won't allow you to create the storage account. So that's mandatory to have a combination of numbers and lowercase alphabets. So I've just executed that script and it will create a storage account with the name 123 test storage account. Wonderful. So the storage account is created. Again, let's read this. The storage account name, just like I said, 123 test storage account. Where this storage account is created, it is created under resource group name, that is Azure Webinar RG. Where I've created in East US. The size of this storage is standard size, and it will give me the creation date and time and the status of it. Similarly, we'll create a virtual network for the same. So it's creating a virtual network for us. Again, in that command, we mentioned under which resource group we want that virtual network should be created. So we are given Azure Webinar RG, the very first command which we created for a resource group. What will be our name? So I have mentioned Azure Webinar Virtual Network in my script. Location again, the status again. And now let's hit the last command to create. So let's create a virtual machine. So let me tell you, whenever you create a virtual machine, so it will ask you to enter username and password. So you can hardcode this, or else you can simply right now also you can do it. So this username and password, it will ask you to log into that particular virtual machine which you are creating right now. So you can give the combination of your lowercase alphabets number, or either you can give it alphabets only, but make sure that will be in a lowercase. So I've entered the username and password. Now it's creating a virtual machine for us. So in the meanwhile, it's creating a virtual machine. Let's switch to the Azure portal. So under resource group, let's quickly check whether the resource group which we have created, it is listed here or not. So this is the resource group which we created via PowerShell. So it's listed under resource group. Now whatever the services or the resources we are creating, all will be residing under this particular resource group. Though it may be a storage account or a virtual network or a virtual machine or the network interface, IP and all, it all will be residing under this particular resource group. So see, we have created a storage account here, it's listed, and the virtual network also it's listed. So right now in the backend, it's creating a virtual machine. So once it's created, that virtual machine will also get listed over here. So let's switch back to our PowerShell command. So it's creating a virtual machine for us. That's 45% done. So I've received a question from Krishna saying that you have created a resource group, but and you have deleted that resource group accidentally. So is there a procedure to recover it? So Krishna, I request you to hold on for 10 or 15 minutes. I really appreciate that question. So we'll discuss that same and I'll show you the practically as well. So it's almost done at 56%. So once virtual machine is created, we'll quickly check that virtual machine is listed in our resource group or not. And once it's done, we'll try to run this two command to start and stop that virtual machine. So here we have created successfully the virtual machine. So it will give you all the information where this virtual machine is created, under which resource group it's created, its OS, its storage profile, its name, its type, and location as well. So let's check via PowerShell only whether this machine is getting populated or not. So let me tell you, you can simply type just the start of that command and you can hit tab so that the command will automatically populate. No need to type entire command. So initially it was showing only one virtual machine. Right now it will show you two virtual machines. That is one Azure Webinar RG and FinOps. So let's check the status of this virtual machine. So in order to check the status of virtual machine, it's the same command get-azure rmvm-status. So you might have observed, see, Azure Webinar RG, the one which we just created, it up and running. And the second, that is FinOps, it's deallocated. It means it's stopped. So let's run the command in order to stop this virtual machine. So let's type it manually. It's stop -Azure rmvm. Simply hit tab. Give a space. -name, give a virtual machine name which you want to stop this. So it's Azure Webinar VM. So So here, whenever you enter this command, it will ask you for a resource group name where this virtual machine is created. So we have created in Azure Webinar RG. So once you enter the resource group name, it will ask you that do you really want to stop this virtual machine? If yes, then select yes. So it will take some time. Let's wait for a minute because it actually at the back end it's stopping up the virtual machine. So in the meanwhile, to answer your question, Krishna, so you mentioned that is there a way to recover if in case you have accidentally deleted that resource group? So in order to answer your question, the answer is no, because once you delete that resource group, you won't be able to restore it. But I can give you the preventive measure so that in future you won't be able to delete it accidentally. What happens if in case you delete that resource group, you'll have to check that resource group ID and you'll have to create a ticket with Microsoft as your team. They'll only able to help you out to restore it, or else we can take few preventive measures so that in future you won't be able to delete it accidentally. So I'll help you with that as well. So this command is successfully run. So we have successfully stopped that virtual machine. Let's again check the status. So initially it was showing Azure Webinar RG as running. Now it's showing deallocated. It means that we have successfully stopped that virtual machine. So in this way we can create n number of scripts and we can automate our infrastructure or resources as per your needs. So coming back to the Krishna's question, so let's quickly go to Azure portal. So if you go to resource group, let's go to the resource group which we just created called Azure Webinar RG. So just to prevent for accidental delete, there's an option called logs on a left-hand side pane. If you click on logs, so this logs works on hierarchy from resource group to the resources as well. So you can create a log for a single instance or a multiple instance, either or a VM or on a storage account. It's up to you. So I'm just clicking on add. Let's say log name as a test. So it will give you two options, just read only or delete. So just select delete and you can give a note like preventing it from deletion, and you can say OK. Now if I go to the PowerShell command and I try to delete this resource group, it will throw me an error. So let's run remove -Azure RM so remove -Azure RM resource group space name and the name of that particular resource group which we have locked it right now. That is Azure Webinar RG. If I hit enter, so it will ask me a question that, are you sure you want to remove this resource group? I say yes. So it will give me an error saying that you won't be able to perform this operation because this following scope is locked. So in this way you can apply a lock for 3 instances, though it may be on storage account, virtual network, just to avoid this accidental delete. I hope I'm able to answer this question, Krishna. So that's all from the PowerShell part. Let's again go to our PPT. So these are the few resources wherein those who have joined this presentation, most of them must be our freshers, or most of them must be having a few knowledge on Azure. In order to deep dive into Azure, they can go through this link. It will help you out to explore more into PowerShell, CloudOps, and for Azure. So you can go through this links. So these are the few assignments. You can simply go through the PPT. I have created 6 assignments. Thank you. That's it from my end. So any question or any queries? So if you have any questions or queries, you can simply mail us at learning@afourtech.com. So it was really nice. Thank you for your time and patience. I'm just closing the session. Thank you.